everyone, welcome to the Movieception Show. My name is Fariba, and this week I'm going to be doing something very special because in honor of Glicked Week, and it's the one week that I've been waiting for such a long time, I thought, you know what, I want to take a little bit of my time to give my review on Wicked and Gladiator 2, and I've actually seen both. Now, I'm going to do both the videos separately, so I'm planning on doing Wicked first and then doing Gladiator second, and I know I have not been doing a lot of reviews, so I'm gonna be a little rusty, but I do want to give my own personal feelings about both films, letting you guys know how I feel about them, even giving my experiences for both films before and after the movie, and just I want to hear from you guys. So yeah, let's get right down into it. So let me just start off with my experience with Wicked. Now, this is important context in terms of my review, because if you're not already aware, musicals are just not my thing. Musicals are actually one of my least favorite genres ever. It's really hard to explain why, because it's just not a genre that I personally have the taste for. It could be just because I grew up watching Bollywood, so I watched movies in a certain way and how music is played, whether it be in the background or whether or not it's part of the story. And not just that, but it's just not really my kind of flavor. So, and it makes sense, right? I mean, everyone has their own, favorite genres, their own personal taste, and musicals are just not it for me. So that was already kind of a disadvantage going into Wicked. It's like, I don't like musicals. Like, this is going to be hard for me to enjoy. But funny enough, in the last year that this film was being filmed, you guys have met my good buddy, Maya. She's been on this channel for a couple of times now, especially in the podcast that we've done. She's a huge Broadway fan. And one of the Broadways that she really loves it just happens to be Wicked. So I actually learned a lot from her about Wicked, what the story is about, why it's such a huge Broadway, why it's talked about so much, why this is such an important movie. And maybe about 6 months ago, I didn't realize the potential for this film. But in the last month or so, my attitude about this film really started to change, drastically. I was reading about some of the stories, I was listening to Maya, then I was learning about, the whole box office potential for this film. And as I was learning more and more about this movie and seeing more footage of the film as well, because the footage for this movie looks really good, that I actually started to really be very intrigued. I was really intrigued to the point where I actually wanted to see this movie pretty badly. And so I actually did book my tickets to see this film for the early access that they had for Wednesday. I didn't go for the Monday one that a lot of people did, but I did go for the Wednesday one. I actually did dress up. I wore the green and black because I was like, you know what? I know my theater is going to be filled with a lot of theater kids, and a lot of people really love the Wicked Broadway play. So I just thought, I wanted to at least be part of the fandom and, just be a part of this collective group of people who really want to enjoy this movie called Wicked. And I actually did bring my two good buddies, Marilyn, you guys have seen her before, and then my other good friend, Nicole. So we got to see the film together. Marilyn was also wearing black and green. Nicole was wearing pink. And so we actually went to go and check out this movie. Now, let's get right down into my review for this, because this is what's going to be really fascinating, because again, I've given the context about my feelings on musicals, and knowing the fact that I've never really watched Broadway, that's already a whole, shebang right there. It's like, okay, I don't know too much about this, aside from the fact that I have seen Wizard of Oz, so I know the context of that. I know the whole Dorothy story. I know I've seen so many redemptions of the Oz story that it's like, okay, I'm familiar with it, but not something like this where it actually goes back into this more prequel kind of style where we get a little bit of the origins of who Elphaba is. So let's get right down into my review for this film, because I think this is what's going to be very intriguing about this. And I think overall the best way to describe it is that this movie is absolutely remarkable. I never would have imagined that there was going to be a moment that I would watch a musical and thoroughly enjoy it. Now, that is not to say that this movie is absolutely perfect. I think there are bits and pieces in the film that I noticed were some of the flaws, but mostly the fact is that the best quality. Like, this is a very quality film that really knew what it wanted to be. It knew its identity. It knew that it wanted to be a very emotional tale of this friendship between Elphaba and Glinda, and that really carries through from beginning to end. And that's considering the fact that this is only just part one. I mean, we're gonna have a two-parter for this film, so I don't know much about, again, what's gonna happen in second part, but just from what they've done with part one, it's absolutely fantastic. Starting from the visuals and the world building of Oz. I mean, I've been reading a lot about this movie and the fact that they actually had to order 9 million flowers just to create the production for this film. I really appreciate the dedication and work and effort they put into this movie, making sure that we can see this really colorful and blissful world of Oz and letting us be very wowed by this. Like, immediately when you see the first visuals, you're like, wow, this is a very colorful world. I mean, it looks spectacular. I mean, they do such a really great job of integrating what we see on Broadway onto the big screen, because again, I have seen footages, and I mean, Jon Chu does a really great job of replicating just the world of Oz in this movie, so that's already one big plus right there. The second, I mean, let's be honest, second best thing, well, it's not even the second best thing, the thing that really carries this movie is, without a doubt, the performances by Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. Now, as someone like me, like, if you're my age, you probably would have seen Victorious, so this is like preluding to the time when Ariana Grande was actually becoming a musician. Like, she became that big pop star. So for me, it's like I actually knew her first as an actor, then as a singer. So I was not really surprised with her performance in this movie. The fact that she was able to really nail the humor. I mean, she was hilarious. I mean, there wasn't a moment in the film where it's like she ever fell flat in the humor that she had. She was really good and really embodying this character of Glinda, who is very bubbly, who's very vibrant, who's very out there, you know, and I think, and I will say this, I as I was watching performance, I was really getting a lot of Kat Valentine vibes out of her, which is like, okay, it makes sense, because Kat herself was very bubbly, very out there, very outgoing, but very talented, and so it makes sense where, you know, you can see some of these connections. So that was something that I was like, okay, this reminds me of Kat Valentine. And without a doubt, I mean, I know a lot of people were really kind of concerned about her casting because, again, she's more known as a pop singer than really an actor. But I will say that her performance is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I really enjoyed her performance here. The comedic, she was giving basically the best comedic performance in this movie. I mean, the humor, anytime that she is showing up and blowing her hair, I mean, it was just hilarious. I don't think there was actually a moment where, you know, where she is trying to perform any of her humorous acts or anything comedic. Nothing ever felt flat. I think she really does a great job of honing in the humor. I think that's what really made this film so enjoyable, was the fact that she put the energy in there to make it very funny. And so I'm not really surprised that there's already a lot of Oscar buzz with her performance. I mean, I think she does deserve a nomination. I know I'm a little bit contesting about whether or not she should really be up for Best Supporting Actor, or she should actually be up for Best Actress in a Leading Role, because that's kind of where I think she should actually be nominated, because of how very involved she is in this story. So I know that's going to be a whole conversation right there, but I want to know what your thoughts are with that as well. But having said that, Ariana was absolutely phenomenal. But of course, the one performance I was really looking forward to is Cynthia Erivo. I mean, just from the first trailer, just hearing the song Defying Gravity, I just knew that, okay, Cynthia is going to be nailing this role. And I just cannot wait to see it. At least in the movie, it does take a while for her role to kind of shine. But I will say that I really appreciate the performance that Erivo really puts into this character, because she's very raw. You can see that she's someone with, again, Elphaba, given the fact that she's so different, because the fact that she has a green skin, the fact that people are ostracizing her, you can see just the subtleties of Erivo's performance in this role. Yes, she's a character who, you know, has accepted herself for who she is, and she doesn't care about how people think about her. But what is so subtle about it is that she does feel hurt. There is something about her where she's vulnerable. And you can see the essence of that coming out of her performance. And it becomes very clear as you get more and more into this movie, where she does show that she is someone who can be vulnerable. And I appreciate that kind of performance for Erivo. And I mean, it was absolutely like there's only one scene. I don't want to get too spoily on this, but there was one scene in the movie. It was like halfway in. It's like a dance sequence. And I think I know a lot of people might be able to figure out which one I'm talking about, but there's a dance sequence. And when I'm watching it, right? I mean, I just don't know much about this movie, right? And I'm just like, okay, I'm just here to see the movie. I want to see how the story, turns out. And when you're seeing that sequence with Elphaba and Glenda, and seeing the emotions coming out of Erivo, how it is so, it is so subtle, but so raw and powerful and emotional, but very vulnerable. I start to actually tear up. I remember I was like, oh my God, I'm starting to really tear up. I didn't exactly cry, but I was starting to get to a point where, okay, I might actually, tear up in this moment. And of course, people in my theater were crying. I mean, so that's when I got the cue that, okay, this is a very emotional moment, But yeah, I mean, just that being an example of Erivo's magnificence in this movie, I mean, that was already a done deal. But that's not to say that I was still waiting for the big wow moment, because let's go straight into the ending of this movie, because I think that's what really solidified my love for this film. And that is the fact that when you get to the last 10, 15 minutes of this film, Cynthia Erivo really steals the show. She kills it. I can't even describe to you just the feeling I had in that theater, seeing her performance, how she's singing Defying Gravity with Ariana Grande, how she's having this dramatic shift, knowing what has just occurred a moment ago and the big decision that she has to make. I mean, the moment that she's singing the big chorus, or the big part of the Defying Gravity song, I was having chills. I was like, oh my freaking God, this is it. This is the moment that I was waiting for. And Erivo does such a magnificent job showing that power of who Elphaba is. Someone who is finally able to, who will accept the fact that, this is what her life is going to be now. And this is the risk that she's willing to take. And so again, what an incredible story that I got to see here. I mean, yeah, there are some flaws, I will admit. Like, it's not the most perfect thing. I mean, yes, the performances are magnificent. I mean, everyone does a really great job in this movie, even with the side characters. Like, I was loving Jonathan Bailey as, what was it, Fiyero? Oh my God, he was so great. And of course, production design, the costume. I mean, I'm already saying, like, this is going to be a film that's going to have a lot of Oscar buzz, without a doubt. I mean, I would not even be surprised if this film is going to be a front runner at this point. That's not to say that, again, that there are some flaws in this film. I think that because of the story structure, like, I think the one point I want to, emphasize is the parts where we do see Glenda and Elphaba finally become friends. I did notice they got a little too quick in that whole execution. It's just like it didn't feel like it was like even a day or two since they became friends, and somehow that's how they are feeling about each other. So I wish there was a little bit more time dedicated into just fleshing those kinds of scenes out. Like the way in the beginning where we actually got to see a little bit more who Elphaba was, like what her backstory is, why, this is a very emotional story for her, why, this is, trying to refocus on the fact that this is what she's been dealing with all her life. Like, we get a lot of that, but I feel like the actual bonding part needed to be a little bit more fleshed out. So that way, once I did get to the ending, that it could have been even more powerful. It could have been even more profound in its impact. That was just maybe the one key thing that I just thought was maybe the flaw, like the one thing I wish it could have been a little bit improved. But even regardless of that, this is such a magnificent movie. I was surprised how much I enjoyed it. I think when I was looking at Marilyn and Nicole, we all were like, this was a good movie. And of course, people in my theater were clapping because we went to like a Wednesday early access. So it was a lot of people who were like theater kids or people who've actually seen the Wicked Broadway. So I had a really great crowd, honestly. I mean, it was quite an experience I had watching Wicked. I can't wait to see part 2 and see how that's going to turn out and whether or not they're going to make any changes as well. But honestly, what a great movie. I mean, clearly a strong Oscar contender going into the award season. And oh my God, like, I mean, I hope to actually see, like, I actually might see it again just to kind of get another look at it. But what a spectacular film. If I had to give like a rating, I would probably give it like a 4.25 out of 5. Really great film. I mean, it makes sense why a lot of people are loving it. But that's all my thoughts about, Wicked, having now seen it. That's coming from someone like me who's never really seen the movie. But But I'll also give my thoughts as someone who has not seen the Broadway and isn't really a musical fan. Like, this is kind of my, I guess you can say, maybe the most unbiased opinion about the movie. And I think that if you are not someone who's done, does musicals or has ever watched Wicked, I think this is a movie that you should at least give it at least a watch, at least a try, and give your own opinions about it. But let me hear your thoughts, having, heard my review about it. If you have seen it, what are your thoughts on the movie? Like, did you like it? Did you not like it? Were you someone who actually had watched the Broadway itself? And if that being the case, like, are there things that you did enjoy, did not enjoy? If there were any changes, like, did you appreciate those changes, or are there things that they were cut off that maybe you wish that they could have kept? What are your thoughts about the performances from Erivo and Grandi? Like, I already said my words about it, but I want to hear you guys. What are your thoughts about just kind of seeing this iteration of Wizard of Oz? And if you have not seen it, right? I mean, why are you doing? go check out the movie. Let me know your any thoughts, comments down below, and make sure to like and subscribe.